In early July, Chinese online patriots experienced a week of collective excitement. It all began with a rumor that ignited widespread enthusiasm. Foreign ships to avoid Houthi attacks have been flying China's five-star flag in the Red Sea. Then, on July 6, a piece of news silenced everyone. The protagonist was once again the Houthi militia, but this time their missile sank a ship loaded with Chinese goods. The atmosphere online instantly shifted from celebration to confusion. What's going on? Are we attacking ourselves? Isn't China and Houthi supposed to be friends? Did the flag just become meaningless? Just 2 days ago, we were praising them, and now they're blowing up Chinese good. What's going on? The shift from "my country is amazing" to "what's happening here" was only a matter of a single ship. The Houthi militia, once hailed as heroes by many Chinese patriots, now raises questions. Are they China's allies or enemies? Before delving into these questions, it's important to understand the scale of the attack. The Houthis' actions were far more intense than a simple mistake. It was far from a simple accidental strike, compared to the previous harassment-style attacks, where one or two missiles were fired as a warning. The attack on July 6 was a brutal, 4-hour-long, full-scale hunting mission aimed at complete destruction. On the sea, up to 8 fast boats armed with RPGs relentlessly surrounded and fired on the magic seas in resembling a coordinated attack. In the sky, at least 5 anti-ship ballistic missiles and cruise missiles came from different directions, aimed at tearing through the ship's armor. Simultaneously, at least 3 kamikaze drones, loaded with explosive, carried out low-altitude surprise attacks. The goal was clear: sink the magic seas. Eventually, the ship caught fire, took on water, and lost all power, forcing the crew to abandon ship. And this was just the beginning. 24 hours later, the tragedy escalated again. Another cargo ship, the Eternity Sea, was hunted down in a similar fashion. After explosions from unmanned explosive boats and multiple rounds of gunfire from armed speedboats, the ship and its cargo sank into the Red Sea. This time, the casualties were heavy. Of the 25 crew members, at least 4 were confirmed dead and several others were injured or captured. In less than 24 hours, one ship was severely damaged and another sank. This answers the first question. The Houthis didn't accidentally hit the wrong target. They attacked with the intent to destroy. A more critical question follows: what made them take such drastic measures? Let's consider the situation from Houthis' perspective. According to their intelligence, this ship raised several red flags. It was flying the Liberian flag, operated by a Greek company, and heading to Turkey, which is located close to Israel. The most concerning detail was the ship's cargo: 17,000 tons of ammonium nitrate, a material that can easily be turned into military explosives. Would they consider this civilian fertilizer, or would they quickly categorize it as military supplies disguised as civilian goods? For those making these decisions, a series of coincidences seemed too suspicious, almost like an open case of strategic deception. In this mindset, stopping the shipment of weapons became far more important than any friendship with the country of origin, China. They were prepared to take extreme measures, even if it meant making a grave mistake. However, the ship was indeed built in Yangzhou, China, and its cargo came from China. It was part of China's economy, representing the output of Chinese factories. At the United Nations Security Council, China's official voice responded to the situation. China's Deputy Permanent Representative of the UN, Geng Shuang, issued a standard format response several times during meetings regarding the Red Sea situation, which can be summarized as a 3-step process. Step 1. Express concern, but never name names. China would deeply express concern over the situation in the Red Sea, but it would condemn the actions without specifically naming the Houthis, using vague terms like relevant parties to avoid offending allies. Step 2. Shift the focus to the root cause. He immediately emphasized that the tension in the Red Sea is a direct consequence of the Gaza conflict spilling over. The implication was clear: don't focus on the Red Sea, the root cause lies with Israel and the United States. Step 3. Call for calm and oppose the use of force. He criticized US and UK military strikes, claiming they would only escalate tensions, and urged dialogue and negotiation. This is the most striking part. China's official stance was a carefully crafted, perfectly balanced approach, as some commentators would call the Chinese Tai Chi style of diplomacy. The goal was to maintain the image of a peacekeeper without angering any party. It expressed concern without committing to any actual protective actions. The official stance of staying out of it, coupled with the emotional, deep involvement of public opinion, paints a highly contradictory picture of the nation. So where did the rumor that caused such a frenzy among patriots, that flying the 5-star flag would ensure safety, come from? Let's take a closer look at how a piece of news was altered step by step and eventually turned into a self-deceptive spectacle. Stage 1. The source of the news. Reuters. Reuters' original report was clear. Some ships using the AIS automatic identification system, essentially the ship's digital ID, had manually added the phrase China owned to their electronic information. It's important to note that this process occurred at the digital level, out of sight. Reuters also provided specific data. Only 55 ships sent out this abnormal information, averaging just 4 to 5 ships per day. Stage 2. The Russian media's twisted version, shifting concepts and changing the main character. When this news was picked up by a Russian outlet called Tsargrad, the key distortion occurred. They cleverly reworded electronic information labeling into ships flying with Russian and other national flags. The digital became physical, changing the story entirely. Stage 3. The official Chinese press conference, final form, self-embellishment and fabrication. Finally, during a press conference by China's Ministry of Defense, a reporter raised a question. According to overseas media reports, by this point, the question had been transformed into a full-on Chinese special version, which goes like this. According to overseas reports, a large number of foreign ships have been flying the 5-star flag in the Straits of Hormuz. Let's look at how absurd the final version became. The electronic signals were completely transformed into flying national flags. The large number of Russian ships mentioned by Russian media disappeared entirely, replaced by ships flying the 5-star flag. And that so-called large number, according to Reuters data, amounted to fewer than 1 ship per day at most. This top-down spectacle sparked outrage from actual industry professionals. One maritime insider who claimed to work for a shipping company wrote with frustration, "Flying a flag is useless, completely useless. It's 2025, it's long outdated." From a technical standpoint, modern navigation doesn't rely on identifying ships by sight anymore. International standards require ships to have an IMO number, such as an ID card, and use the AIS system to broadcast a ship's identity, location, and heading in real time to the world. The truth is, what started as a few ships' self-preservation efforts based on digital signals was distorted by 2 layers of media. This was then amplified into a public frenzy by an official news performance. Ultimately, this spectacle was brought to an abrupt end by a missile from the Houthis, who did not look at the flag either. If the Houthis' mistaken strike is just the surface, then beneath the water lies a colder calculation of interest. One point many find difficult to accept is, regardless of its original intent, the Houthis' attack may have caused far greater damage to China than the US. They believe that if the Houthis' actions were truly beneficial to Chinese shipping, the stock price of companies like Costco Shipping, the direct beneficiaries, should have skyrocketed. Instead, they took a significant hit. The stock market logic strikes at the heart of the matter. The Red Sea-Suez Canal route is the shortest and busiest trade artery between China and Europe. If the route is blocked, it means sky-high shipping and insurance costs, which will eventually be borne by businesses and consumers in both China and Europe. You might view this as just one interpretation, but the strongest evidence comes directly from US officials. Back in March, a shocking Signal Group chat leak revealed this layer of the story. According to detailed reports by the New York Times and The Atlantic, senior US officials, including Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, openly discussed the Red Sea situation in a private Signal Group chat. The consensus was clear. The biggest victim of the Red Sea crisis were China and Europe. As they bluntly stated, China and Europe are the real losers, since the US energy security and key trade routes are not dependent on the shipping lane. This perfectly explains the unusual situation we're witnessing. The US military, with the most powerful military forces in the world, has only launched unlimited symbolic strikes on the Houthis. For the US, a chaotic but manageable Red Sea might not be a problem, but rather an unspoken advantage that weakens economic ties between China and Europe. Regardless of the Houthis' subjective intentions, objectively, they are playing the role of a proxy carrying out a cost-effective strategy to economically strangle China and Europe, two of the US's biggest competitors. The recent so-called misfire in the Red Sea acted like a surprise inspection, giving the world a rare look at the true state of China's global network of allies. While America's alliances can be seen as a well-disciplined group of partners, China's strategic partners appear more like a temporary coalition facing multiple challenges. First, the Houthis, eager but often problematic allies. They may generally want to assist, but their actions frequently backfire, leaving China in an awkward situation. Second, Russia. Once a dominant force is now bogged down and unable to offer much help. Instead, it often drags others into its struggles, forcing tough decisions between moral consideration and self-interest. Third, North Korea. Unpredictable and often disruptive. At the quietest moments, North Korea can suddenly cause chaos, making any peace initiative seem ineffective. Leading such a group of no easy task, much of China's focus appeared to be less on progress and more on managing the chaos caused by these challenging partners. Given that China's cargo ships were attacked, the key question is, where was China's escort fleet? The answer is the fleet was stationed nearby in the Gulf of Aden. China has its first overseas military base in Djibouti, where a permanent escort fleet is deployed. However, they didn't provide protection for all ships. Instead, they took a unique approach, a tactical hands-off strategy paired with strategic active involvement. The fleet was engaging in cost-effective intelligence gathering, observing firsthand a real naval conflict from the safest possible vantage point. The Red Sea became a valuable risk-free environment for China's Navy to learn modern warfare tactics. They could study how a top-tier destroyer defends itself without the support of an aircraft carrier early warning systems. They could learn about Iran-backed missiles, drones, and the tactics used in saturation attacks. They could also analyze U.S. military interception capabilities, ammo consumption, and combat logistics, all critical insights that money can't buy. This spectator learning has become a standard part of China's naval operations in recent years. It's a smart, practical strategy. Let the major powers take the risk and reveal their tactics while China stays at a safe distance, preparing for future showdowns with its strongest competitors. The missile incident in the Red Sea also served as a crucial stress test, exposing a dangerous vulnerability in China's global economic position. Its strong manufacturing power is counterbalanced by its fragile external dependencies. China's foreign trade dependence exceeds 30%, which is significantly higher than the US's 20%. More than 70% of China's oil needs are imported, and nearly half of it passes through the Red Sea lifeline. In addition, over 90% of China's foreign trade goods are transported by sea. This high level of external dependence means that any disruption of these vital trade routes poses a significant risk to China's economy. This high level of external dependence means China's economy is vulnerable to any disruption in these global supply routes. This creates an imbalanced situation. While China has a world-class economy, it lacks a global risk management infrastructure to match. A single missile from the Houthis caused widespread panic on Chinese social media, revealing a fundamental flaw. When a country's core interests span the globe, but its protection system don't, it becomes a seemingly powerful yet fragile giant. This issue goes directly to the heart of China's global strategy. For years, initiatives like the Belt and Road have relied on economic output to create global prosperity. But the Red Sea crisis revealed a glaring weakness in this model. These economic lifelines are highly vulnerable. A small armed group from one of these world's poorest countries can hijack the global supply chain, driving up insurance and logistic costs for every Chinese exporter. This exposes a dangerous mismatch, a globalized economy without a corresponding global security umbrella. This is the core of the fragile giant dilemma. China's vast economic power is exposed to threats, with its most crucial sectors vulnerable to even the smallest adversaries. Ultimately, the Houthis' missile attack provided a harsh lesson in international political realism. The reason they targeted China's goods was simple. In their cost-benefit analysis, executing their core objectives was far more important than maintaining friendship with a distant superpower. There are no permanent friends, only permanent interest. This principle applies to all of China's so-called friends. This event could become a painful but necessary turning point. It makes it clear that the rise of great powers cannot rely solely on economic output and declarations of friendship. True security comes from undeniable hard power that extends globally. When merchant ships sail the open seas, they are ultimately protected not by other countries' flags or vague agreements, but by their own aircraft carriers and global intelligence networks. Before China can learn how to manage its problem partners, it must first learn to rely on itself. This journey will be long and costly, and the blast in the Red Sea is just the first bell of a difficult lesson.